Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Aragon. So you've seen with module 25, we're getting a new lockbox, the Lothian lockbox, and very importantly, it's going to be having a new mount, which I have been saying is probably going to be best in slot. And yes, it will be. But something I missed out on mentioning is the insignias. It's going to have 4 slots, as we've seen they're going to introduce, and so this is going to be the first mount with that. However, unlike past mythic mounts where they all had like 3 universal slots, this is only going to have 2 universal slots, and then the requirement of needing a barbed and a crescent insignia. That means you're going to be limited on what bonuses you can actually use. For example, none of these insignia bonuses I have right here, warlords, artificers, or assassins, fit with a crescent and a barbed. They aren't exactly clear on how it's going to work, but as far as I'm aware, anything that's going to take a crescent and a barbed plus another one of any type you want will allow you to have those 3 slot insignia bonuses. So for example, if we look at our insignia bonus list right here, you'd be able to have Cavalry's Warning, giving you ratings when you activate a mount power. You could have Victim's Preservation, giving you a bunch of defensive stats when you take a big damaging hit, and then just Survivor's Blessing. So only 3 insignia bonuses you could have, and they're all defensive orientated insignia bonuses, except perhaps, yes, your Cavalry's Warning. But to be honest, most people are going to have their ratings, at least if you're a DPS character, capped like the ones you need, and so you're only just going to obtain like defensive ones through that. So that's the 3 insignia bonuses you could have with this mount. And then having the empty slot, being able to fill it with something other than an enlightened. If you fill it with an enlightened, you're actually going to get a new insignia bonus. This is the way I believe it works, and this is how I think it is. Like, if I don't put an enlightened in there, I can have any of those previous aforementioned insignia bonuses. But you may have seen already in a video that I posted, we're going to have new insignia bonuses that require you to have 4 insignias. And they've changed these a bunch. So they've been updated a little bit. And they've introduced some new ones that are really good. So to start things off, you have your Protector's Covenant. That's nothing new. We've seen that already. It's basically reducing your offensive stats and increasing your defensive stats. You'd be able to use that on a tank. But you may notice it doesn't require having a crescent, and thus you are not able to have that insignia bonus with this mount, as it doesn't match with the required insignia. So that one's out the window. We won't be able to use this bonus until we get like another mythic mount that might be able to fit that. Then Lionheart's Preservance. You won't be able to use this either. It doesn't have the crescent and barbed combination. It would be another defensive one, much like Champion's Return. You get reduced to a certain amount of hit points, and then you gain some stamina and hit points back, and a cooldown of 30 seconds. Then we have Master's Precision. This one requires a crescent, a barbed, and then 2 enlightened here. This is going to be the first insignia bonus that we will be able to use with this new mount. And see, it's going to give us 5,000 critical strike, but only when your stamina is between 25% and 75%. That is feasible to have that requirement, and yes, you can see it, you'll be able to fit that combination in there. Again, you'll have to have the crescent, the barbed, and then 2 enlightens, and that's where the preferred one comes in. You need an enlightened in there to actually use the insignia bonus. Some DPS classes might be feasible to have this. I personally don't think people will really need those extra ratings, and having it at not 100% uptime means, yeah, it's something you're gonna have to think and fit into your playstyle. And using stamina can just sometimes not be the best option when you don't need to, and so on. We'll see what happens. The next insignia bonus is Mender's Covenant, which is awesome. Much like Protector's Covenant and what you can see I have using right now, Assassin's Covenant, but this is particularly for healers. You lose awareness, critical avoidance, defense, and deflect, but you gain critical strike, critical severity, and outgoing healing and power. Those are all for healing stats. Awesome. So you're going to be able to use this new mount to boost your healing ratings as a healer instead of using what some healers might already use as Assassin's Covenant, which isn't perfect because it gives you a bunch of accuracy and combat advantage that you don't need, and you're only using it to gain crit severity and crit strike. So that's very good to see, and this new mount will allow you to be able to make use of that combination, with it having a crescent, a barbed, and an illuminated, and then you're enlightened. Now lastly, there is one more insignia bonuses you will be able to make use of, which is Accursed Resolve. I'm not sure how useful that will be, but whenever you're inflicted with a debuff, you gain some power and deflect. I personally don't think it's a great one, as you can't rely on always having a debuff. Yes, the new trial Xemnid's Reliquary will basically have you having a debuff in phase 2, and then in the following phases of 4, 5, 6, and 7, you're going to have a debuff 100% of the time, just because of the way those artifacts work. But I don't think people should really build around that. I mean, it's possible, but I don't think people will. Now, there have been some changes with regards to those insignia bonuses, and let's just cover them real quick. So, Protector's Covenant stayed the same. Lionheart's Preservance did get adjusted so that now you only have to be at 30% of your hit points rather than 20%. Master's Precision gives 5,000 crit strike instead of just 3,000. And then Mender's Covenant got introduced, so that's a new one they've added. Executioner's Covenant is also a new one they've added. And then Accursed Resolve was existing before, except they increased that by 1,000 stats up to 3,500 instead of 2,500. Tactician's Resolve was there before, except again, increased the stats from 2,500 to 3,500. And then Survivalist Expertise was also there before, except they increased the stats again from 2,500 to 5,000. And they reduced the negative effect of having a Revive Sickness to 25% instead of 50%. So if you do go and use the Stronghold boon of Revive Sickness, whenever you receive a Death Skull, you'll reduce your hit points by 6% and your damage by 6% instead of what it would have been at 7.5% when this negative was at 50%. Anyway, without this at all, you're still reducing with a skull your damage and hit points by 5%. And that's per skull. Not good, and maybe some classes will use this. I mean, it's feasible when you're running content where you highly likely won't die, and Forte can fit with everybody basically. And that's about it for all the new insignia bonuses there. But just keep in mind, the new mount will only be able to make use of 3 of those new insignia bonuses. And I don't really think they're a big deal for a DPS. Your Master's Precision, your Mender's Covenant, and your Accursed Resolve. Mender's Covenant, that's a big one. That's like, this mount is hands down best in slot for a healer just to have that insignia bonus, along with having a 4th insignia slot that's more item level and everything. And it doesn't mean that you can't use this mount on a DPS character. You can, but again, you will be limited on what insignia bonuses you can have. Like, you can run with the 3 slot insignia bonuses, but again, the requirement is having a crescent and a barbed, and I believe you have to have these first 3 slots as what makes the combination of the insignia bonus. Again, I'm going to have to check that out myself. For example, could I have Artificer's Persuasion, right? An illuminated, a barbed, and a barbed, and fit that into this mount, and basically have the crescent as the floater insignia, which doesn't contribute anything to the combination. I am not sure. That could make the mount a little bit more useful. And when Module 25 launches, that'll be again next week, Tuesday, March the 28th. I'll be sure to check that out. So again, just a heads up, that new mount, you'll only be able to get Master's Precision, Mender's Covenant, and Accursed Resolve. Out of all these new insignia bonuses, I personally think the best ones to go for are Protector's Covenant for tanks, Mender's Covenant for healers, and Executioner's Covenant for DPS. There are some other options here, but I think they are just that, options, not a big deal. Lionheart's, yes, I guess this can be pretty good. If you're using Champion's Return, then you can have this as well, but I don't think you very often end up at 30% of your hit points. Not like you do getting to 50%. I mean, it depends on the content. Hopefully this was somewhat insightful, you guys. Just wanted to give you guys a heads up with that new mount. It's not all great with regards to the insignia bonuses. It's pretty limiting, to be honest. And it's, I guess, pretty sneaky and smart of them to do that because, yeah, you won't be able to have all the insignia bonuses, and so you'll be trying to get another mythic mount for that. People might just get this mythic mount anyway for the aura bonus that it provides. You're basically giving you and your party these stats, which is really good. And I mean, like 3 DPS could use this, then the healer used runic and the tank used mystic aura, and you're all providing each other with a ton of ratings. But personally, as a DPS player, I don't think it's that important to get this mount. In a trial, you have 4 supports, 2 supports can run this, 1 runic and 1 mystic, and you're set. And on top of that, the insignia bonuses that it provides are not really orientated to damage dealers, and thus they don't really get that appeal. Special thank you again to all of these channel members for their continued support. You can support me by clicking the join button down below for as little as €1 a month. And we'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.